111.
Okay, let's do it.
Good morning, United States of America and planet Earth. This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live from South Central Texas, home of Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, the banner city, the beacon city, Austin, where it is becoming subsumed by these incredibly tall Stack'em and Pack'ems. I can't see them from my beautiful studio window, but what I can see every single morning is a cross, a very large cross, and that's at the Episcopal Church that sits across from me at about 11 o'clock. I get to see that every single day in the distance. What's happening out there? How's everybody? By the way, I want to thank some of the people that have been giving me some positive feedback in the shows lately. It's been very heartening to receive such really solid support. Just, and look, there may not be a ton of you, okay? There just may not be a ton of you. But the ones that are here, boy, you're great. And I really love and appreciate you. So thank you very much for that. That's it warms my heart. And, we're all trying to evolve. We're all doing our best to get to a new place where we can not always feel like we're victims of a system that is rigged, because it's true for a large extent of our experience here. We live in a very controlled environment, and as time moves on, those control factors get greater and greater and greater and greater and greater until all of a sudden we find ourselves in the midst of a deeply controlled 24/7 technophobic, or rather technocratic society. It'd be phobic because people would be scared shitless. Although the way that it's getting set up, it is so seamless and so, how do I say this, smooth and undercover that most people won't even know it's happening. They won't even know it's happening. Or it's already happened. And it already has happened. Let's be clear about that. If you've got smart TVs that are spying on you, and guess what? Here come the Internet of Things, and all your appliances are going to be spying on you. And you may say, well, that's crazy. How can an appliance spy on you? Well, it's easy. What they do is they will send your data usage, or not even your data usage, but your usage data to first parties, third parties. If you're using your refrigerator and it's open 5% of the time longer than it's supposed to be open, guess what? You could get a reprimand. This is true. Or they could say, hey, you're going to be, if you use your refrigerator 5% of the time more than other people, your refrigerator is scheduled to be replaced 2 years earlier. So you've had that refrigerator for 3 years now, so you may as well start to look at a new refrigerator. In fact, why don't we just order you one right now? And since you're on Mark Zuckerberg's universal income plan, you can afford it. Although you can't afford the really nice model. The model where it's not connected to the Internet of Things? Think about that. I'm not here to spread fear. But every now and then I have to go to the dark side to kind of let you know what's going on out there and how things are evolving, and at times de-evolving, and de-evolution is part of the process. And this is what we're engaged in right now. We are engaged in a de-evolution and deconstruction. We're in the deconstruction phase, and there can be no doubt about that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is the removal of statuary. And that is really a big part of the deconstruction phase. And I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to get to that. But what I wanted to touch on here, under the Aquarian moon, since we have about 11 degrees left of this wonderful Aquarian moon coming up in trine with the sun, so we can emote and speak freely in kind of a detached and witnessy kind of way. It's not highly charged. There's more latitude and room in the Aquarian moon. It's also a little odd. Anyway, there's a story that broke about 2 weeks ago, and it still has legs. It still has legs. And the story I'm referring to it emanates from Olympia, Washington, where I lived for a couple of years. And I loved Olympia. And the thing I loved about Olympia was how quirky it was. You had people from Evergreen College who at that time were eccentric. They were eccentric. Were they radical? Not really, but they were eccentric. And then you had the state workers who were, steady as they come. And then you had the people that worked at the brewery, the Olympia Brewery. Then you had the people that were in the timber business, cutting trees down. And then you had some fishing, not a whole lot. It's at the edge of the Puget Sound. It's not the best part of the Puget Sound. But it was an interesting mix of people, and it was, I thought, in many ways more interesting than Seattle. It was certainly more weird. You get that strange mix of people, you get some weirdness. Anyway, I lived there for 2 years, pretty much lived every day of it, had a great time there. I didn't have a whole lot of connection with Evergreen College, but check this out. The times that I did go there, which were a few, one of the times that I did go there, Bill Cooper was there. I saw Bill Cooper speak at Evergreen College. Could you imagine a Bill Cooper-like person speaking at Evergreen College now? Think about that. Just think about that. That was back in 1991, and Bill Cooper was at Evergreen College. I guess the equivalent would have been, or would be, Bill Cooper's, at that time, adversary, Alex Jones. Could you imagine Alex Jones speaking at Evergreen College? What would happen? Well, in case you are not aware of this story, it concerns Brett Weinstein. He's a professor, and he teaches biology at Olympia College, and they have a day basically where it's like all whites go away day. Now, this is really interesting because Brett Weinstein, he looks very white. Brett happens to be Jewish, and apparently that doesn't count. Not according to the inmates who run the asylum up at the University of Washington. Evergreen University. And he basically he was threatened. He was told he was racist, that he had to leave for that day. He didn't want to leave. He just wanted to teach his class. Can you imagine that? A guy wanted to teach his class? And Brett Weinstein now believes that he is in danger. He's in danger because he doesn't feel safe there. So let me just read this to you. This comes from the Olympian, the great local newspaper for Olympia, the Olympian. Brett Weinstein is the professor at the heart of a heated controversy over alleged racism. Of course, there's no racism there. At the Evergreen State College in Olympia, said he's relocating his family for their safety, and he's unsure about his future at the public liberal arts college. He should lawyer up and sue their ass. The college has never acknowledged the danger that they put us in, and therefore I have no way of knowing whether it's safe for me to return. Weinstein said on Fox News, Tucker Carlson Tonight show on Monday. This was this past Monday. Their assurances that it is safe don't mean anything. Not that they've offered them. It's unknown if the interview is pre-taped. The show is described as a live hour of spirited debate and powerful reporting each night on the Fox News website. College spokesman Zach Powers said Weinstein has returned to his job and that he's aware that the college has beefed up its security measures. I understand faculty member Brett Weinstein returned to campus just over a week ago to teach in his normally assigned classroom. Powers told the Olympian on Tuesday afternoon he's been notified by Evergreen Police Services of additional law enforcement present on campus. Weinstein said Tuesday, "That is not true. If college administrators say I was on campus last week, they are lying," he told the Olympian. "I left campus when it was evacuated on the morning of June 1st. I held my afternoon class in a downtown park that day and left the state with my family that evening. We have not been in Washington since, and some administrators know that." In recent weeks, Weinstein has been vocal through Twitter and some news outlets criticizing the way administrators have handled student unrest over racial tensions at the 4,000 student college. This is his tweet. "Remarkable that George Bridges is still president of Evergreen means the Board of Trustees and Governor Inslee, Jay Inslee, don't know the truth. Not only did Bridges allow the collapse of Evergreen State College, he directly caused it." The two-part post continued, "And now he's obscuring the truth, putting us all at risk. Weinstein teaches biology at Evergreen. He told Tucker Carlson he has duties to finish the year out and no alternative employment. I received tremendous support outside the college. I've received quite a bit of support privately within the college. But publicly, only one other professor has come forward to say that he supports my position. And that professor, Mike Peros, sent a letter of support for Weinstein to his lawmaker, Representative Jim Walsh, Republican, Aberdeen." So, is he overreacting? Is he overreacting? Is this the right course of action to take? To remove himself from a situation where it might just blow over, or is he a marked man on the Evergreen campus at this point in time? I don't know, but I've seen some of the video, and it's a little edgy, to be honest with you. I mean, there is some significant anti-white hatred that is being brewed out there. And I was talking with my son this morning, and we were kind of going back and forth on a couple of things. And there was this whole notion of, what's going on in the world and news and what's being sort of told to us and kept from us. And it was a pretty spirited little conversation we had there. And it triggered something for me, which I, didn't share with him because I'd like to let him to form his own opinions. He's 13 years old, and I don't want to force feed him, because you force feed a child, what do? They go in the other direction, right? So I really don't want to do that. But what it triggered for me is that it appears to be that racism is the new Holocaust. It's the new Holocaust, right? Because once the Holocaust, or whatever happened, occurred, based on the events that were portrayed in the aftermath of the war, whatever happened, occurred, and it's been an industry for quite a long time, and I'm not alone in talking about this. David Horowitz has mentioned this many, 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 many times. And there are huge amounts of reparations, financial reparations, that were awarded due to the Holocaust and continue to be part of the Holocaust until this day. And if you talk about the Holocaust in a critical fashion or want to examine it in Europe, you are done. You're toast. And in Canada, it's very, very close to being toast. In the United States, we can still have a discussion about what actually happened, but it's a very charged kind of conversation to have. And if you get into it and you are on the wrong side of that conversation, you are in big-ass trouble, okay? But at some point, the Holocaust is going to lose its momentum. At some point, the Holocaust is going to lose its power. Because, number one, it happened in Germany, and number two, it happened in the 1940s. But if you can successfully fuse the Aryan rise of nationalism and attach that to the growing antipathy towards white America and bond the two and call it racism, well, now you've got something that's kind of a brand new. It's a mutagenic strain that, for all intents and purposes, becomes the new Holocaust. And this is what's taking place. This is what's taking place. And when it happens, there's always got to be something, right? There's always got to be this social detonation that's going to separate people. And I've told people, look, people that are on the quote-unquote minority side of things. If you think that this is a good thing, if you are celebrating the fact that this is taking place, well, just wait. Wait about 35 to 40 years, because if this deconstruction continues to occur, then there's going to be another wave of deconstruction and another wave of deconstruction. It's kind of like that poem, or not that poem. It's that eyewitness piece. First, they came for, the whatevers, the communists. Then they came for this. Then they came for that, and then they eventually came for us. And that holds true. That holds true. You may be standing up and clapping that the end of white hegemony is on its way, but be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you ask for, because you don't know what's coming after that. That's all I want to say around that piece. But what I do want to talk about, which is related to this, is this new phenomena of removing statuary. Because when you remove statuary, this is there are two ways that you change the symbols of culture. Two ways. This is classic. These are classic old school techniques. These are not modern techniques where you're using television or the internet or movies. Those are all pretty much 20th century techniques. I'm talking old school tactics for changing culture. Number one, you remove statuary. If there are heroes, if there are people that are connected to a certain historical narrative, you tear them down. You take them down. That's number one. That's number one. Number two, you change the money. And you put different faces on the money. You put different symbols on the money. And so people are identifying with their material existence. Every time they exchange the coin of the realm, they're exchanging the face and the power and the symbols of the current realm, and not the realm that preceded it. So it's all about the deconstruction of history. Now we can see this taking place, and this has all started about, a year and a half ago, with Dylan Roof down in South Carolina, where he was this complete Confederate patsy who went to a church and theoretically killed a bunch of people, which none of which happened. None of it happened. It was a total and complete false flag. And yet, this has been probably the most successful false flag out of all of them. Like Sandy Hook wasn't that successful, although Sandy Hook has clearly created a cognitively dissonant environment in which Alex Jones has to defend himself against Megyn Kelly. What did the Boston Marathon do? Did the Boston Marathon do? Well, it helped Mark Wahlberg's movie career, that's for sure. But it didn't really move the needle. What happened in South Carolina moved the needle, because Dylan Roof was pictured with all of his Confederate garb. And what's interesting, if you look at Dylan Roof's Facebook account, he had all these friends who were black. I mean, they liked him. He was one of the crew. That's what he was. And then all of a sudden he comes out and he's this white national. Now, the kid was just a patsy. He's a total patsy. And I don't know what's going to happen to him, if he's ever going to really stand a real trial. If he is, will he be released? I mean, the whole thing is just complete and utter nonsense. And yet, what it's done is it's accelerated this deconstruction of the South. And a lot of people will clap and say, great, get rid of the flag. Well, they started with the flags, and now they're going after the statuary. They're going after Robert E. Lee. They're going after all these characters and all these people that are associated with the Civil War in the past. And those statues could be a reminder not necessarily of the greatness of the South and the South is going to rise again, but of that era itself and how painful and fracturing and divisive it was. But no, we can't have statues that can spur debate, just like Brett Weinstein can't be on an evergreen campus because theoretically he's white, and the campus can't have people that are going to speak and create hate speech or triggers or or, incite their microaggressions. I mean, you see where this is going. There can be no free dispatch of any kind of intercourse, social intercourse. Intercourse is different, right? Of course. You know what I'm saying, though? I mean, this is alarming. This is alarming because at the very least, the statues could spark a debate, could cause people to say, "Well, what happened here? What went on here? What was the cause of this? Why are these people here?" In some cases, people just walk by them and pigeon shit on them. Okay, and that's the way it goes. But the removing of the statuary has become a flashpoint, and a pretty significant one. Well, they're taking it one step further. You're going to love this. Okay, so there's a professor named Sarah Bond, and she is a professor at the University of Iowa. She recently argued that appreciation of white marble used in classical artwork contributes to white supremacist ideas today. Are these people insane? Professor Sarah Bond demonstrates in an article published in Hyperallergic that many of the statues, reliefs, and sarcophagi created in the ancient Western world were in fact painted, meaning the white marble often seen in such pieces of art were intended to be colored. Consequently, Bond argues that the equation of white marble with beauty is not an inherent truth of the universe, and is thus a dangerous construct that continues to influence white supremacist ideas today. Bond goes on to point out that most museums and art history textbooks contain a predominantly neon white display of skin tone, which has an impact on the way we view the antique world. The assemblage of neon whiteness serves to create a false idea of homogeneity. Everyone was very white across the Mediterranean region, she adds, later stating that misconceptions of the classical era provide further ammunition for white supremacists today, including identity groups like Europa, who use classical statuary as a symbol of white male superiority. It may have taken just one classical statue to influence a false construction of race, but it will take many of us to tear it down. Okay, so let's sort of move forward here. If they're taking down the statuary in the South, this whole notion of taking down white statuary in general, just because it's marble, is, I'm telling you, it is the next phase. It is coming. It is coming. At some point, Michelangelo's David, right? He'll be the cries, the human cry will be tear it down. Tear it down. And this is where we are right now. It's an amazing sort of piece to witness and try to wrap our heads around. Because they can't have anything new if the past still exists. A while back, I think this was probably around 2011 or so, I was doing a lot of work on what I would call the symbolic desecration of Christianity. And if you look at the Concordia, the wreck of the Concordia, which happened, I believe, off the coast of, what was that, Spain or Italy? Hold on, that's sneeze. That there were a number of these events that were these kind of hyper events, or what we call meta events. And I could see that there was a pattern, a supernatural / occult pattern, where they were eradicating Christianity, not just at a symbolic level, like the removal of churches or crosses, which has happened, by the way, but from a completely symbolic level. Like, they were creating events that were, for all intents and purposes, initiating the end of Christianity. Now, some people might say, well, isn't that great? We'll get rid of that religion. By the way, some interesting stuff being put out there about the New Testament and the Old Testament, and how the New Testament and the Old Testament represent cognitive dissonance, because they're two separate books, two separate universes, and two separate ideologies. And part of the reason why some of the authors who are putting these pieces together are talking about this is because it represents a type of spiritual schizophrenia. And I've never been an Old Testament person. I can't wrap my head around the Old Testament. People love the Old Testament. Boy, there's all kinds of wrath and vengeance and blood, and oh man, the Old Testament is like a Tarantino movie. Maybe Tarantino should do the Old Testament. The New Testament is very, very different. The New Testament is about the new heaven and the new heaven within you. It's very different. Anyway, I digress a bit. So they were having these meta events, which were literally about the destruction of Christianity. And what we've seen is that's taken place. And the reason why that's taken place is because they need to eradicate Christianity for a new religion, a new world religion. Now, the new world religion, as it's being set up, seems to be Islam. It seems to be Islam. But at some point, will the West and the East be pitted against one another in a clash of cultures, civilizations, and religions? And will Islam and Christianity be wiped out together, ultimately? That's a really interesting question to ask. And if so, what replaces the two of them? Aha, that is the question. That is the question. Because a lot of people think, and to some degree, Islam would be it is the Sharia version of Islam, is the ultimate religion of control, where you have this governing body and you have a theocracy, and it is a lockdown theocracy. Absolutely locked down. And at that point, if you look at the House of Saud, who basically lords over the theocracy, and the Salafist rule of the people of Saudi Arabia, you can see what it looks like. Now, if you're starting a one world order and you want to have a lockdown theocracy, well, there's your model. But I don't think that it would go down like that, especially in a place like this country, in Europe, where they've taken away the guns, and they've literally taken away the spirit of the people, unfortunately. It's a revolution without one shot really fired. But here in this country, it's a different story, and I don't think it would be as easy, because Americans are obstinate, pig-headed, and stubborn, and some of them are still very tied to, very quote-unquote red, white, and blue in Americana kind of ways. Make America great again, right? So you'd have to get rid of those people in order to start kind of a new order. And you'd have to get... So what would you do? You'd weaponize the population. We've gone over this. But if there is a global conflagration of Islam versus Christianity or the non-Islamic population, then there could be a decimation of the two, and out of which, you see, here we go, the Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. The solution is, hey, let's have a new religion that connects us all together. Let's have a new religion. Here we go. Aren't you tired of the violence? Aren't you tired of the strife? Aren't you tired and tired and tired and tired and tired? We've got a new religion that's just waiting for you. It's just for you. And here's where we have, it's all love. It's the all love, 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 love. And to this day, I still believe, and I could be completely wrong, but I still believe that the new religion is Baha'i, which is the most universalist of these sort of fertile crescent hybrids, as it were, right? So this removal of the statuary is going to be very interesting, because it's going to infiltrate into museums. It'll be in public settings, I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And you mark my words, you're going to see, number one, desecration. If there are marble statues, right, you'll see desecration. Number two, you may see them painted red, or you may see them painted brown, or you may see them painted black, because now the idea is out there, and ideas are like viruses. And I hope we have a few good viruses out there, because we need some good ideas. But this you can just see this. It's easy. Just connect the dots. And then it goes from the streets and into the museums. And it's part of this eradication piece, right? You need to eradicate the past in order to have a new future, or have a different kind of future, or have a new world, right? Anyway, these things are, and they've been heated up Trump is like acetylene. He's like, kerosene. Just add some kerosene. Donald Trump is kerosene to the social fires, the social bonfires. Somebody, Deva from Australia, sent me something, and I want to just give it a little love here. What were we talking about? She lives in Australia. She says, Robert, the Chinese are buying everything. Dairy, electricity, most of our food sources. They own our ports, 99-year lease, taking our water, properties, etc. So this is another piece of what I'm talking about, because China is playing a role in the deconstruction and the reconstruction of the West. So this is a website called stopforeignownership.com.au. And we are trying to address the issue of foreign ownership and ensure that Australian land and farms remain in Australian hands. We need your help. Okay, so here's where some of this stuff gets twisted up, right? Well, the people can say, well, look what you did to the Aborigines. And now it's being done to you. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. Okay, well, there are Aborigines or Aboriginal people that are part of Australia now, and for better or worse, whatever happened to them, which is not great. They were not treated well at all. It's unfortunate. It's one of the most ancient and profound groups of people on the planet, and didn't go well. And now they're having to deal with the consequences of the Chinese. Look, to say that conquest didn't occur, didn't happen, would be an outright lie. It would be disingenuous. England spreading its wings across the planet, not really always the best move, right? I mean, because of the toll that it took on indigenous cultures, and I'd be the first to admit that it's not great. But this whole notion of conquest is not patent. England or Germany, they don't own the patent to this. I mean, the Spanish, who are not, the Spanish are never in this debate about white hegemony. But the Spanish were brutal conquerors. And if you look at what Father Junipero Serra did to the Indians in California, the Pacificos and the Ohlone, the Miwoks, my God, it was terrible. He used to tie them up like dogs and throw them food scraps. And the California coastal tribes were probably the most peaceful tribes of any of the Native American tribes. And Junipero Serra was canonized. He was made a saint. And yet, this notion of conquest is never, ever mentioned when it comes to Spain. It's interesting how but everybody's been involved in it. Everybody. There are no clean hands when it comes to hegemony and conquest. I mean, let's just get over this right now. What happened in 1948? You had a group of rabid Zionists that went over to Israel. What that time was Palestine. Conquest. There's tribal conquest inside of nations, right? Or pre-national states. If you look at the history of the Native American tribes, you'd find intertribal warfare and conquest of lands and all that stuff. It's part of the human experience. You can go to Africa. You'll find the same thing. The ingress of one tribe to another, their lands, their cattle, their women. This is not something that is just a quote-unquote white issue. Everybody's done it. We're all complicit. And once we understand that, gee, wouldn't we get a better hand up on the world? But that's not the case, part of the Hegelian dialectic, and we wind up going into problem, reaction, solution mode, and there's always a good guy, and there's always a bad guy, and it's always about divide and conquer, and it's always about duality. And so that is really part of what we need to do here. I mean, we keep talking about how do we get to the next place, how do we get to the next place? Well, we have got to close this gap. I mean, that is essential for me. That's essential for me. It's important to understand what's going on, but it's also important to understand that, look, you're a part of it, 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 we're all a part of it. And we're all being manipulated, and we're all being pitted against each other. And I've talked about this. And one of the reasons why there's such a social and economic reward in this is because there are special interests. And these special interest groups are tied to either defending or being on the offensive, and they get paid money. They get paid good money to continue to fight the fight. And think at some point in time, well, when we win this thing, when it's over, we're going to get ours. We're going to get ours. And unfortunately, that's sort of where the mass psychology is at this point in time. But it's happening. China was weaponized back during the Clinton era. Oh, by the way, Bill Clinton, I had this little piece up here. I really think that what happened in the Balkan War when Clinton was president, boy, that was brutal. I mean, it was hard for me to wrap my head around what was going on there. But here's just a little quick factoid that they used up to 15 tons of depleted uranium in 1999 when they were bombing Serbia. This is a new suit that's come out, and it's the NATO bombing. It wasn't just the United States, but Clinton was forced into that, by the way. And it was the Monica Lewinsky affair that forced him into bombing Serbia. This is from RT Today, or RT.com. This is an interesting little statistic. In Serbia, 33,000 people fall sick because of this every year. Isn't that an interesting number? 33,000. 33, we see 33 all the time. All the time. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because what Clinton did with Serbia and this just egregious act. It was the Clintons that weaponized China in giving them most favored nation trading status and selling all of our technology. I mean, it was a big deal. Without the Clintons were steroids for the Chinese. Absolute steroids. And now they're buying everything they can, both in Australia and in the United States. I mean, they're huge landowners here. They own tons of housing, tons of real estate. They have free economic trade zones. They're buying Hollywood studios. If you haven't noticed, the kind of one of the main narratives in Hollywood now is that the Chinese are either super, super smart, or they're the good guys, or they're the world saviors. And look, I'm not China bashing. I'm just pointing it out. But China has been weaponized economically. Islam has been weaponized ideologically and religiously. So these are two major forces in the world that we're all having to, quote-unquote, deal with. And I'm just here to, oh, look at this. Let's just cross my headlines. Dennis Rodman's already been effective. Check this out. This is a, hold on a second. I gotta get this. This is a Fox clip. Let me just get this, hold on. So type this in. Otto Warmbier, American student freed by North Korea, back on U.S. soil. He's in a coma. Oh boy. So Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea and they release Otto Warmbier. He's comatose. That's brutal. He's been there a year. Now, is it because he's not useless because he's in a coma, or did Dennis Rodman have something? I don't know. It's interesting. Rodman shows up in North Korea and they release Otto Warmbier. I didn't even know this guy was there, to be honest with you. But I just saw the Rodman thing pop across my headlines. So today's show, in ending and bringing this full circle or completion, sense of closure. It's important to have a sense of closure, isn't it? If you don't have a sense of closure, boy, things can be difficult and interminable. But bringing it full circle here, what we're trying to do, at least on today's show, is to understand the big picture, to see that there is an eradication of the past for a prescribed future that we are supposedly going to have to fit in. And that eradication of the past could result in a number of conflagrations or battles. At the very least, very intense social strife in order to deconstruct the past for this prescribed future that most of us are being, or theoretically being herded into. And to look at what's happening, to understand the dynamics, at the very least, dispel some of the power from it. And what you do with that is, whatever it is you do with it. Are you going to get angry? Are you going to get pissed off? Are you going to get frustrated? Or are you going to continue to build your life and build your health and build your wealth, which is all very important, especially if we're going to have this money change coming up here in about a year and a half. Ethereum has reached $300, I think, for the market price for Ethereum. Silver is still a bargain, by the way. And remember what Cliff High said about silver. So the whole goal here, to build yourself spiritually, to build yourself financially, to build whatever you can, because it's in the building, it's in the construction where we get stronger, where we as individuals get stronger. And that we have the potential to create something new. But we can't create something new if we are decimated, either physically or financially or even emotionally. So keep the faith and keep working on yourselves and stay strong and stay committed to your connection with Source. If you want to call that Source God or whatever it takes for you to get in touch with your inner knowing and this divine presence that runs through our lives like a river. Get there. Get there, stay there, and build the rest. That's your sanctuary. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame, and this 15 minutes was 44 minutes. I'll be back 24 hours from today. And until then, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. Here's the outro music. Have a great day.
Okay, let's do it.